on Saturday, we're gonna talk about a little bit of good news actually, because we still have one more shitty story to talk about in regards to Kamala Harris, but this is a little bit of good news. So on Saturday, there were massive anti-DOGE, anti-Elon protests that
Millions of
occurred in all 50 states. I think it's like more than 1 million people altogether protested against what DOGE is doing. New York, LA, DC, even in fucking Nebraska, in Utah. This was like almost an unprecedented turnout for in protest of what Elon Musk is doing to the federal government.
people taking to the streets Saturday across this country protesting against the Trump administration's policies and massive cuts to the federal workforce. ABC's Christian Cordero is in Washington, D.C. as well with the latest.
Chants from coast to coast after Saturday's hands-off protest drew in more than 1 million people, organizers say, across some 1,200 rallies in San Francisco and Seattle, from Los Angeles and Lincoln, Detroit to Denver, and right here in Washington, D.C., where an estimated 100,000 people filled the National Mall.
We all have something that we're upset about, and they're all important things.
Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency has spent weeks making major cuts to the federal workforce with the goal of shrinking the government and saving billions in federal funds. His latest target, the Peace Corps. Sources tell ABC News DOGE...
Elon does dumb shit like this. He targets the Peace Corps. He cuts pediatric cancer research funding, and then goes online and cries about how I can't believe why people are mad at me. I'm just I'm just a guy. I'm just a very small person in the grand scheme of this simulation. I don't understand how anybody could hate me for what I'm doing. People are fucking dying because of this dipshit. The Peace Corps, pediatric cancer research, Medicaid, Social Security, the VA. Elon has managed to do something that almost like no other fucking political figure has done in recent memory. And that is personally fuck up the lives of virtually every American. The whole idea of DOGE is fucking stupid. DOGE, in and of itself, is a redundant agency. Every other government agency has or had inspector generals that audited and reviewed these companies for waste, fraud, and abuse. And you also had the Office of Government Accountability that did the same fucking thing. DOGE is the worst clone of that. But instead of operating on the basis of impartiality, like the inspector generals did, Elon is going after things that he doesn't like. And he's going after ways to further enrich himself. Like the FAA contract with Verizon, for example, that he threatened to cut so he could give it to fucking Starlink. People rely on these government services. They rely on Social Security. They rely on the VA, whether it's for loans, for housing, for mental health treatment. People rely on the NIH. They rely on funding hospitals in rural areas. People rely on the FDA and the USDA for their fucking food and their medicine. This is why people are upset. Because the government, regardless, you may think that government doesn't work well or government is inefficient. The answer to that is not to cut. The answer to that is to beef up the federal workforce. The federal workforce is something that is supposed to scale as the population increases. As more and more people are born over the last fucking 80 years or so, as more and more people were born, more and more people entered retirement. That means there are more Social Security recipients. That is why the Social Security Administration has tens of thousands of employees. That is why the Department of Health and Human Services has tens of thousands of employees, because people rely on these agencies. if you want better outcomes in this regard, even if it's something like air traffic controllers, the answer is to hire more people, not get rid of them.
Members entered Peace Corps headquarters Friday to begin a review of their system. Amid the DOGE cuts, unemployment in March increased, the economic uncertainty keeping people like Stan Prusik up at night.
47 years of work, 47 years of savings, and I just started Social Security, and I'd like to enjoy. It's time to me to enjoy life.
The protest, a stern message to lawmakers across party lines.
We are standing up and saying in this moment we will organize and mobilize, and we are ready. 2 years, not 4. 2 years. We get to decide who is in Congress.
Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell of California among those to rally.
What's the plan?
Yeah, we have to show fight. We have to fight on the inside as loudly as folks here are fighting on the outside. Otherwise, they'll lose hope.
And Christian joins me now for more on this. I'm wondering what impact, if any, do you think these protests are having? Has the White House taken notice?
Well, we'll see, Phil, because the White House hasn't released an official statement just yet, but the president is set to return back to Washington tonight after spending the weekend in Mar-a-Lago. As for the impact overall, one thing to really keep in mind here is that while the message certainly was targeted in large part to the Trump administration, it was also more broadly sent to lawmakers across party lines on Capitol Hill, right, in Washington, in Congress. And so this is really just kind of, people showing up and showing out and voicing their disapproval. And you would imagine that there will be a lot of conversations, regardless of who, what partisan lines they fall under, on how to meet the moment for these hundreds of thousands of people who showed up yesterday.
Yeah, Elon is wickedly unpopular at this point. His net favorability has dropped by like 19 points over the last couple of years or so. Trump and the administration are distancing themselves from Elon because he's a fucking loser. He's a loser. And I'm not saying that to be mean, although I do want to bully him, but he is objectively a loser. He pumped $20 million into, why did I say dollars? He pumped $20 million into the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, backing the Republican candidate, and he got fucking dumpstered. He got shit on. He lost by 12 fucking points. Elon is not good for the political prosperity of Donald Trump. That's why he is reportedly getting kicked from the White House a little bit early, because Trump and his team recognize that this guy not only is a loser, but he's fucking weird. He's off-putting. His vibes are atrocious. He has no charisma. Every time he's on TV, it's a fucking disaster. And people just do not like seeing Elon Musk.
And yesterday you were on the mall and you talked to a lot of these people. I know many of them were upset with what's happening in job cuts across the government. But we've seen Elon Musk say, I believe he said it from the Oval, that when mistakes are made, they'll right them. That's little comfort for the people who are cut and then put back. But HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said some of his department's programs would soon be reinstated again after they were cut by mistake. What happened and where does it stand?
Yeah, addressing that word mistake, right? And a lot of that context is really important. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said that some of these programs would be reinstated. It's unclear right now which ones were, but essentially what he's saying is that some people were laid off within HHS, Health and Human Services, that were not part of what DOGE is trying to do in their promise to shrink the government and cut federal spending. A lot of the jobs that they have targeted have been in more like the communications realm and the human resources realm. And what RFK Jr. is saying is that there were some research programs that were cut as well. So one thing he acknowledged was a CDC branch that monitors lead exposure in children and works on prevention efforts there. He's suggesting that that might be one thing that's reinstated, but it's still to be determined how many jobs and in what capacity will come back.
There's still a lot of uncertainty. Christian Cordero, thank you very much.
The reason these mistakes are happening is because Elon wants to run the government like a Silicon Valley company. It's the old tech bro slogan. Go in there, and just fucking break shit, and then you fix it later. Except you can't run government like that because, again, people rely on this shit, dog. They rely on the federal government. If you really wanted to go after waste, fraud, and abuse, you would go after the Pentagon. You would go after the Department of Defense. The Pentagon can account for multiple trillions of dollars. They've failed an audit every year for the last 7 years. That is real waste, fraud, and abuse. Your Grandma Stella is not committing fraud by, she's not a 90-year-old committing fraud off of Social Security. If you think there's fraud in Medicaid and Medicare, it's not at the point of the recipient. It's at the point of the provider, like fucking Rick Scott. You can't, you just cannot reduce these agencies. You cannot reduce these agencies in any capacity, because even if you lay off people who work like administrative in HHS, or you lay off janitorial in HHS because you want to have more of a research budget, it doesn't work that way. You need all of those people to come together so that way the researchers can properly research, so that way the labs are clean and sterile, so that way they have all of the necessary supplies. It takes all of those people to effectively run these agencies.